This goes on page 50 in your notebooks. Our content objective is we will be able to solve equations for a certain variable in 2 steps. What are inverse operations? They are operations that reverse the effect of other operations. So what am I talking about when I say operations? I mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are mathematical operations. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So if you want to reverse the effect of an addition, you need to perform subtraction. So the inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division. And the inverse of division is multiplication. In order to solve equations for a specific variable, we need to isolate that variable by performing inverse operations. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. By doing this, you keep the equations balanced. When you see an equal sign, you need to think that we're talking about balancing what's on either side of that equal sign. That's why we have to perform the same operations on both sides. 2x plus 7 equals 13. We need to get x by itself. The first thing that I need to do is I need to move the 7. So in order to move the 7, I need to perform the inverse operation. So the inverse of adding 7 would be to subtract 7. So when I subtract 7 from both sides, 13 minus 7 is 6, and 7 minus 7 is 0. So I don't even need to write it. I can just cross those out because now those are canceled out, or zeroed out. So now I have 2x equals 6. So 2 times x equals 6. So the inverse of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we can cross those out because 1 times x is still just x. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have found that x equals 3. These next 3 examples I would like for you to write in your notebooks using 3-column notes. You're going to have an example column, a work column, and a steps column. So the first thing that we need to write is our problem again. So 8 equals 5 times n minus 2. And then I need to perform inverse operations. The inverse of subtracting 2 is adding 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides of the problem. Minus 2 and plus 2, those cancel out. So I have 5n. And 8 plus 2, 10. 10 equals 5 times n. I don't want 5 n's, I want 1 n. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. When I do that, I see 5 divided by 5 is 1, so 1 n equals 10 divided by 5, which is 2. So the steps. The first step that I had to do was add 2 on both sides. And then my second step was I needed to divide by 5 on both sides. And then I got my answer. My next example is 2d plus 3 equals 11. So rewrite the problem. 2d plus 3 equals 11. And now we're going to get to work. So we need to perform inverse operations to solve for d. In order to do that, first thing I should do is subtract 3 from both sides. So when I subtract 3 from both sides, all I'm left with on the left-hand side is 2d. And then 11 minus 3 is 8. So we find out that 2 times d equals 8. Now I don't want 2d, I only want 1d, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. When I do that, I know 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1d equals 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So d equals 4. Okay, so our steps. Our first step was to subtract 3, and then on both sides. I'm going to abbreviate that as OBS from now on. Subtract 3 on both sides. Then my second step was to divide by 2 on both sides. So what I was left with was d equals 4. Okay, now we're bringing back in something that we talked about the first week of school. So we had those properties. We had commutative, associative, distributive properties. When we see parentheses in a problem, like this one right here, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to use the distributive property. So 3 parentheses b plus 7 equals 30. With the distributive property, I take whatever's on the outside of the parentheses and I distribute it into the parentheses, which means I'm going to be multiplying. So 3 times b is 3b. 3 times 7 is 21. So I have 3b plus 21 equals 30. And now it's just like every other problem we've done. We go through our inverse operations. So let's start with the plus 21. What's the inverse? Minus 21. 21 minus 21 gives you 0. So you have 3 times b equals 30 minus 21, which is 9. So 3 b's equals 9. I don't want 3 b's. I want 1 b. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so 1b equals 9 divided by 3, which is 3. Next step, write down all my steps. Next step, write down all my steps. Right. So the first thing we had to do was distribute. We distributed the 3 inside the parentheses. My second step was I had to subtract 21 on both sides. My third step was divide by 3 on both sides. And then I got my answer. That's all we have for today, but we're going to be extending this concept throughout the week and really for the rest of the year because this is a very important concept. It translates into solving linear equations, solving quadratic equations. We're always going to need to know these inverse operations in order to find out our answers. But for today, that's it. So quiz 8 will be on Tuesday, 10/8. Thank you very much.